What's going on YouTube? This is Sean and I am back again, and in this video we're going to be working on Batman Ninja. Or is it Ninja Batman? Or is it Karate Batman? So I was talking to Ed today and he was like, hey Sean, I want to get back to work. And I was like, sure, let's make another Batman helmet. And he was like, why? We have like 10 Batman helmets. And I was like, well, what do you want to be? And he was like, I want to be a ninja. And I was like, perfect, let's make Batman Ninja. So after I wrapped them up with duct tape and cut all my patterns that I needed, I tossed them aside and came up with these nice little looking pattern thingies. Now in this build I decided to go with some 6mm EVA foam, so I had to expand the patterns by 1%, maybe 2. Now as for this nose piece right here, I had to do a hard angle cut, which was more than a 45-degree cut, but I needed it so that way when I glue it to the other nose piece it would form better to the nose. Then I took my patterns and I cut out all my inner patterns, and then I traced it on the inside of the patterns. These will be my undercuts and some V-groove cuts. For this pattern right here around the eye, I did a V-groove cut, which was a straight cut, and then a angle cut, which made it a V cut. More like a check mark cut, but it's better to say a V cut, right? And then for the nose piece right there, I did a slight cut. That way I'm gonna fill that in with hot glue. But as for the V-groove cuts right here, I'm going to fill that in with contact cement. And when it dries to attack, well, you know what's gonna happen. And then I went and glued the insides of these sides, if that makes any sense, because this is where my inner piece is going to connect. They're not going to connect to the edge, they're more like on the sides, but you'll see here later on in the video. Now as for the nose piece right here, I did do a slight or a very light score, I guess, and then I filled it up with some low temp hot glue. And why did I use low temp hot glue? Because it dries a lot quicker than high temp hot glue, because hot glue can take a long time to cure up or cool down or something like that. Now once all the contact cement had came to dry to attack, I went and pressed everything together and it gave me this really cool effect. Yeah, it's starting to look pretty legit, right? The eye looked kind of funky, but I did correct it later on in the video. And here I am doing the other side of the helmet. Once I got it all figured out, it wasn't as hard as the first side, which was the other side, which makes this one my right side. Yeah. Then I went and glued on the, I don't know what you call that, the inner forehead. Let's just call it the inner forehead. And I did cut this piece right here in a angle cut, that way when I joined them together it gave me this beveled part. But when I get up to the top of the inner earpiece, it was a straight cut, that way I can glue it onto the insides of the sides and it'll give me this 90-degree thingy for the earpiece. And let's repeat the process over on the other side. Same thing except for mirrored, I guess. So when I made the cut for the inner forehead, I kind of started off at the front of the forehead in an inward angle cut, and as I came to the inner earpiece, I went and switched my blade over to a straight cut. That way I can have this effect that you see right here. And now it's time to put on the forehead, and that part was cut with an outward angle cut. Yeah, seems legit. And that gave me this other bevel effect, which was like an inverted bevel effect, I guess. Now the earpiece was a little tricky. Now I did have to go back and make adjustments to the template, but whenever I glued everything together, I did not consider the thickness of the foam, because when I made the template on ED, you know, I used cardboard and masking tape, which isn't 6mm thick, and the foam that I'm using right now is 6mm thick. But no biggie, I went back and just fixed it because, you know, it's just cosplay, bro. No need to stress on these kind of things, you know what I mean? You just be patient with it, fiddle around with it until you get it right. And if you start to get frustrated, you know, just take a little break. I call that cosplay fatigue, and I get that a lot. I mean, I'm over here trying to build stuff and things don't seem to go right, and I get frustrated, and then I don't want to even cosplay no more. So I just take a little break, you know, come back fresh minded, let's tear it up, you know what I'm saying? And some of you guys are probably thinking, you know, Sean, you make it look so easy. Well, I edit all the difficult part out because that wouldn't look good, you know what I mean? I just put in the stuff that you need to know, like this part right here where I'm merging the two pieces together. And normally, to get my edges all nice and even, I would use the surface of my table, but because of the bat ears, that's kind of impossible. So I have to eyeball it and make sure everything gets on there nice and neatly. Now moving along to the chin piece strap thingy. Yeah, now I could have had this lower piece right here all in one piece, but it seemed like it was just taking up too much space on my foam. It's like I was wasting a whole lot, so I cut it into two pieces and I glued it together. And now the parts where they join together, I did cut those two ends in an inward angle cut. That way when I glue them all together, it'll give me this really nice beveled effect. Now I did make the jawline just a little bit longer or a little bit bigger, just so that, you know, when you talk, it's not like keeping your mouth shut, you know what I'm saying? Now here's what I was talking about earlier, where my ears are a little funky because of the thickness of the foam, but I did go make adjustments to the template and I fixed it. Now it's time to glue the jawline to the rest of the helmet. And notice the back of the helmet doesn't actually go all the way around his head. He's got like this fabric thingy and some bands that kind of wrap around his head. So I'm going to try to imitate that. Well, he actually wears two different type of cowl. There's one where he has this neck guard around the back, which is kind of like a Shogun ninja. And I'm going to try to make that as well. Now that I got the helmet all put together, it's time to put on some heat so I can smoothen out some areas. And this is a good time to go through and make sure all your seams are completely contacted or closed up. Now I know some parts are kind of gappy, like around the earpiece, but I'm gonna fix that with some caulking. But before I do that, I'm gonna go through and sand down all the edges just a little bit, right here where the nose bridge is and around the eyes, and hit the jawline and kind of round off the edges. Now this is a little tricky. You got to be really steady with the Dremel tool or you're gonna go overboard like I kind of did on the other eye. But yeah, then I went and formed the nose just a little bit, and then now it's time to go through and fill in some of those gaps with some caulking. Now some people like to go through and fill all their seam lines with the caulking, but I don't do that. I just seal up the big gaps. And the reason why I don't go and seal up all the seam lines is because the caulking will give it another layer which you can actually see, and the goal is to try to get your seam line cut as straight as possible and glued together nice and neatly. That way you don't have to add caulking. And yeah, I went and filled in all the ear areas where the foam meet each other, and also of course the back part of the ear, which is really funky. I mean, that needed caulking the most, or should I say seal. And if you're wondering what kind of seal I'm using Quick Seal, or you can actually use bathroom towel sealant, something silicone. And what I'm doing is I was smoothing it out and then with my finger, and then I'll go through with a wet finger. You notice I have a little shot glass there with some water in it, and that'll help me smoothen it out just a little bit better. Now that I have all the gappy stuff figured out and sealed, closed up, I went and punched in some holes for the sides where I'm going to put some elastic. And I got this nifty little tool, which is like a hole puncher. It's meant for punching leather, so, you know, why not use it on foam? But I'll be using this tool a little bit more later on in the video. Now here is the back neck guard piece. I did add some heat to the top piece a little bit, and I'm using some masking tape to tape the edges together. That way I can glue the bottom half of the neck guard. And you see where I'm going with this? This will help me get that roundness thing going on. And then once I get it all glued down, it's time to take that tape off and, you know, put it in your pocket and save it for later. And then, yeah, this is what I ended up with. And this is going to go around the back of the neck, which I'll show you later on in the video. Now I went in and drew some lines, and I'm using that nifty hole puncher again. And I'm going to go through and cut all these lines out. Or should I say punch all these lines out. And it was a little time consuming because there's quite a bit of holes to punch out, but you kind of get the picture. I mean, this is what it's gonna look like towards, you know, after you get everything punched out. After everything was done, I went and put a couple coat of plasti dip, and everything is starting to look a little more uniformed colored. Doesn't look so bad. Now I took some 1-inch, or is that ½ inch? No, that's 1-inch elastic, and I am going to glue it, but from the inside. Now with these elastic, it's easier to cauterize the end before you start to insert it into the hole. Makes things a lot easier. And then I put on some hot glue and clamped it down. Now as for these little holes, I decided to go with some ribbons. I thought this ribbon would be big enough, but it wasn't. Now I got these ribbons at Walmart, but I think you can get those at any craft store. I ended up going with something a little bit thinner. I think this was like 1/4 inch. The line could be like 3/8. I don't know. Let's say 6 millimeters. Yeah, seems legit. I went and cauterized all the ends of the pieces that I cut. It made it easier for me to insert them into these little slots, and it did look better than the other ribbon thickness, I guess. I tried doing the X. It didn't look as cool, so I went back to doing the other whatever, and I went and inserted them parallel to each other and applied some hot glue and put it down. Now I'm using some really hot glue, and you don't want to touch that with your hands, so I'm using, you know, some high-tech hot glue pressing utensil. You can also use that as a pen too. I mean, why not, right? Now this did seem a little bit tedious and time consuming, but at the end I thought it was well worth it. I went back and hit the inside with some plasti dip to conceal all that goldness. I took this hole puncher and I punched some holes on the corner of the top. This is where I'm going to attach it to the rest of the helmet, and I'm going to use this ribbon right here, and yeah, I'm basically going to tie it to the helmet, and it's gonna lace up just like that. You see where I'm going with it. I decided to connect it over here right by the ear. Now my hole puncher couldn't reach that far, so I had to use this other high-tech hole puncher. Was doubles as a flathead screwdriver, and it worked, so why not kind of use it to push the lace in as well. And you know, I thought about tying it, but my ear is gonna be there, and if I wore this, it just tickled my ear, so I just ended up hot gluing it just like that, and it worked just fine. And I wanted it to be able to move up and down because, you know, a neck movement happens. Now this is what it's looking like so far. I need to work on the I guess the inside of the helmet, which would probably be like a neck guard, head sock, or something like that. Yeah, but yeah, well, I guess that's it for this video. And if you're into this kind of stuff, I mean, if you're really into it, then check the links in the description down below, and it will take you to the templates. I will be making the rest of the suit hopefully really soon. And don't forget to swing by my Amazon shop. That way you can pick up your supplies, your materials, and whatever, you know, stuff that I think you would need. I have it all listed in my Amazon store. You guys make sure you guys hit that like button, leave comments in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already subscribed. I'll see you guys in the next one.